Last Thursday night, about 1 o'clock in the morning, we had a very unusual thing happen. We had a young lady that was moved upon by the Holy Spirit. This young lady has been in my church for quite a number of years, she and her whole family. She's a brilliant young lady. Her father is a doctor. Her mother is a school teacher. Amy graduated, of course, with honors. She's a very, very sharp young lady. But the Holy Spirit came on her in one of the most powerful ways I've ever seen him come on anybody. And I guess in any move of God, you read books later after a move of God has all been ascertained, and you read about certain people that the Holy Spirit came upon. I believe in the Pensacola revival, Amy will go down as one of those people. She was one of the most unlikely people that I would ever imagine something like that to happen to. But she shook violently. No person, there's nobody here could shake the way that she shook. And her mother brought her to me the next night after this happened, and I saw her in the office, and the Holy Spirit spoke to my heart and said that it would last for 3 days. And it did. It lasted for 3 days, and now it's subsided. But as the anointing begins to move, she feels it again somewhat, and she does manifest somewhat, but it's subsided now from what it was. But she had a powerful experience with God, and I'm going to have Amy come and share it with us. Amy? And she's going to share with us what the Lord did for her. And I just wish, how many of you saw the Spirit of the Lord on her? Wasn't that something? I'm telling you. Many of you that are here tonight have not seen it, and it's hard to describe it, but I'm telling you, God was all over this girl. If I've ever seen God, I saw him on Amy. I'm going to have her tell you about it.
Well, for those of you that didn't see what he did to my physical body, it was, little girl asked me to explain it to her last night, and it was the first time I thought about it, explaining it, and really the only way I can say is that it was like every muscle in your entire body was jerking as hard as it could all at the same time. And they say, you know, did it hurt? Well, after a while my muscles got sore, some of them that jerked the most, but it didn't hurt. You know, God wouldn't hurt me, you know, come on me and hurt me. But as far as my spirit and my mind and my soul and my emotions and my heart, the way that it's affected me in those areas is that, well, all my life I've come to this church, and because my mom told me we're going to church, and you know, it never meant anything to me. It was just a part of my weekly routine, and I sat up in the balcony and I watched and I listened, and I know a lot about God, and you know, I guess I'm educated in godly ways. But it never had anything to do with my life, the way I lived my life. I went bad ways, and I did bad things, and you know, I was just basically a typical teenager and a typical child. I rebelled a lot, and I guess that's an understatement. And so whenever this revival hit our church, my mom told me we're going, and you know, it was just another thing. We'll go to church and we'll sit through church and we'll go home and I'll go out and do my thing, and that was it. But it wasn't it, you know. I came in this church, and the first night I came was last Monday. I guess it was a week ago today, and I was just sitting back there and I was like, I can't wait till this gets over. And Brother Hill started preaching, and it started convicting me, but I've always rebelled against things, and I was like, no, I'm not going to let this get to me. And so I went home, and I have 2 sisters, and they were very excited about what was going on, and I was just like, whatever, you know, just leave me alone, I don't want to hear about it. And so then we came back the next night, and one of my older sister drugged me up here to the altar during prayer, and she made me stand here, and I stood here for maybe 2 hours. You know, she just would not let me go sit down, and I had a bad attitude. I've always had a bad attitude. I've always just been kind of a snot, and I mean, that's just the truth. I'm not going to hide anything from you. You can ask anybody I know in my family. They are always putting up with my bad moods. And so I stood up here, and Allison, my sister, she's used to me. She's used to dragging me around and making me do things. And so Brother Hill, he said, everybody that wants to be prayed for, gather up to the front real close. And so I did, and we gathered up, and it was real tight. You know, everybody was just real tight around me. And he said, pray. He said, pray and tell God what you want. And so it was kind of a challenge to me. You know, I was challenging God, you know, and that was just me before all this has happened. I was just, you know, kind of rotten. And so I said, okay, God, change my life. And I just shut my eyes and I prayed. And I said, change my life, maybe 10, 20 times. And the next thing I knew, I was waking up on the floor. Well, no. I tried to open my eyes because he started talking again, and I wanted to pay attention to what was going on, but my eyes would not open. And so I started to pull on him with my hands, and then my sister said I was just kind of thrown to the floor, and I woke up, I think it was an hour and a half later. And I was like, well, you know, that was strange. And so I went home, and we came back the next night, and I was a little reluctant to come up here again, but I did, and then Brother Hill prayed for me. It was the first time anybody had prayed for me, and I fell. You know, my whole body was just nothing, and I just fell, and I laughed for maybe a couple minutes, and I got up, and I went and sat down, and went home, and so then my mom the next day, she said, we're going back to church. I said, okay. So I had to work. I'm a cashier at a grocery store, and I didn't get off till 6:45, and so I had to run home. No, 7:30. I got up at 7:30, and I ran home, got ready, came back, because by then there was a slight hunger in me for what was going on here. And so, you know, we ate on the way over here, we ran in, sat down, and we sat through the sermon and everything, and then we came back here again, back up here during prayer time. And I stood for, I think, about 2 hours and waited. And he kept going back and forth and back and forth. And I was like, well, I'm just going to stand here until he prays for me. I'll be the last person to get prayed for, but I will stand here and get prayed for. And so I did, and he came and he prayed for me. And I fell to the floor. You know, my body was limp again, and I just fell. And I laid there, and I was in my right mind. And I was in my right mind during the whole thing. And I said, God, if you're going to do something with me, I'm laying on the floor. You know, I don't do this, and I don't like laying on the floor in the middle of a bunch of people that are stepping on me. And and so, you know, in other words, if you're going to do anything, you better do it now, because I'm not coming back if you don't. You know, I'm not going to come back down here and lay on the floor again. And so he started. There was a wave of something, and it came from my neck to my waist, and it just jerked and jerked and jerked. And God told me, I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm cleaning you out. Because I know that until this week, I was just the rottenest person I knew. And I'm not, that's the truth. And you can ask my family, I was. And they've had to put up with me all my life, and I'm sorry for y'all having to put up with me, but he said, I'm cleaning you out. And so he just cleaned and cleaned and cleaned for, I don't know how long it was. They say it was about an hour or so. And then my right hand, it began to shake, and it was just shaking real fast. You know, I was laying on the floor, and it was just shaking, and I heard people laughing at me, and so I took my other hand and I pulled it down, because I don't like to be laughed at. I don't really like to be around a lot of, you know, in front of all these people, but, you know, God told me to do this, so I am. And so I pulled my hand down, and God would weaken this hand, and he would pull this one back up, and he would jerk it. And I was like, why are you doing this? You know, I feel so stupid. And he said, Amy, just let me do with you what I want. You know, you've put yourself here, and you've said I can, so let me. And so I said, okay. So he jerked my hand and jerked it, and finally I was like, you know, my wrist hurts. Can we stop, you know? And so he took my hand, well, it's this hand, and he held it like this. And I was laying on the floor, and he was right there beside me, and he and it all went kind of numb and tingly, but I could still feel it. It was just like cold, and it had tingles, and he told me, I'm holding your hand. You know, you don't want me to jerk it, so can I hold it? And I said, well, yeah, you know, you can hold my hand. And so he held it for a long time, and then he started to pull my arm up. And, you know, I was like, you know, this is just all completely strange to me. You know, people say, do you understand? No, I don't understand. But he started to pull my hand up, and it got all the way out. And I was like, well, what now? And so he started to pull my shoulder. And to make a long story short, he pulled me all the way up till I was on my tiptoes. And I had him, and, you know, I'd pull against it with my strength, and I knew he had my hand because I couldn't pull my hand down. And so he got me up there, and I said, God, I can't go any farther than this. I can't lift, you know, I'm not going to go up off this ground. And I guess it came down to that I didn't have the faith in him to pick me up off the ground. But then he let go of my hand, and my hand began to shake just very, very fast, just up in the air. And then I just lost all my strength, and I fell to the ground. And I said, God, what are you doing? And he told me that it was just like in my life. If I had faith, he could take me anywhere. But if I didn't have the faith, he would if I couldn't hold on to him, he couldn't hold on to me, then my life would go like my hand was going, and I would fall. And that would be my life. You know, my life would be a disaster if I didn't hold on to him. And so I understood that. And many things happened. And whenever I woke up, I had been down about 3 hours, and I woke up, and there was people, you know, probably about 50 people left in the church, and I think it was about 3:30 or so in the morning, and they were looking at it, and I woke up, and I was like, why are y'all looking at me? And they thought that was funny, because what had happened to me was, you know, it was really happening to me, and I did not realize that anybody was around me. It was just me and God. And so I went home, and my family asked me, what is going on? What did God tell you? Did you see anything? And I told them many things that he told me. I can't even tell you everything now. But now it's like, you know, my friends have called, and they've called, and they've called, and I haven't even taken any phone calls, because God is showing me, you know, he's taking a hold of me like he took a hold of my body. And like the pastor said, I could never imagine anybody taking, you know, jerking that fast. And I see that like he took a hold of my body, he's taken a hold of my life, and he's turned me around. And I'm quitting my job because the people at my job are just going to take me in a bad direction. And my name, he told me, I think it was Saturday, and he told me my middle name is Elizabeth, and it means consecrated to God. And he told me, he said, Amy, you know, if I'm going to change your life, you're going to need a new name. And it just so happens that my middle name means consecrated to God. And so he told me, I want you to stand up. You know, Pastor told me after these 3 days, after this jerking went away, what was I going to do to keep my eyes on him? And God told me, change your name, because you use your name so much. How could you forget, you know, consecrated to God? And so that's what he told me. He told me that God would tell me, and he did. And so if any of you see me, please try to call me Elizabeth, the ones that know me, so that I won't be Amy anymore.
John Michael told me, we were hunting in Iowa, and I came home from the hunting trip that afternoon, and he told me that they were going to be moving to Dallas. And I didn't know whether to beat him or shoot him with a gun. But it came as a shock. And John Michael and Elizabeth are moving to Dallas with their family, and our prayers go with them, our blessings go with them, and we believe that they're going to walk in the will of God out there for what God has for them. We believe it's going to be an extension of whatever God was doing here. And everybody loves John Michael because he's visited you in the hospitals. He's preached funerals. He's done weddings. He's counseled. And he's just been an ever-present help and a right-hand man to me, someone that my heart trusted in because he's my son. John Michael has been a delight to work with, him and Elizabeth both, just been a delight. And I'm going to really miss him. I've cried
Hadn't let nobody see me, but I've cried until I can't cry any more tears. I'm going to miss him. He's always been with me all through the years of the ministry, even at Brownsville. And so I better go ahead and stop now while I'm ahead. I can still talk. But would you welcome my son, John Michael and Elizabeth.
Well, we love y'all. Y'all are a blessing, and we say y'all because we're Southerners, and we're always going to be Southerners. This has definitely been a very difficult decision and not a very fun one because we know what that means when we make a decision. We know that means uprooting y'all have to understand, I've been in Pensacola, Florida since I was 5.5 years old. And this area is all I know. Brownsville Assembly of God and Church of His Presence, the only two churches I can recollect. So this is not just some flippant decision and we're out of here. I mean, this was a very tough decision for both of us and our kids. And so it's, we know that there's exciting things ahead, but it's also a very painful time for everybody. But there's one thing about me that I've always known. From the time that I came back from Lee University, which is where I attended college, I was on the basketball team there. I came back and revival broke out, the Brownsville revival. And we both had our lives completely changed at the Brownsville revival. And so when all that happened, I just knew that the same thing that's happening right now, something shifted inside of me. I no longer had a desire for basketball. My coach called me to tell me I'm in the starting lineup and we're excited for a great season. And so then I just knew that my time was done. I just knew it on that phone call because I wanted revival more than playing a basketball game. And so I made the decision. We weren't even together at the time. But I made the decision that, the Lord called me to the ministry and that's what I did. And so it was an incredible time. We've got married, and then we were in the ministry. And I just always felt called to serve my dad. I know that's kind of a weird thing to say for a son to say, but I didn't really feel called to anything else other than serve my mom and dad. I can't explain that to you, but I just know that that's what I was called to do, is just serve them, lock arms with them. Dad had the vision, he had the calling, he had the purpose. He was doing everything that God called him to do with excellence. And I was just so honored as a son to be able to support my mom and dad and be blessed in the meantime. So we had an incredible time together. Obviously, we started this church, and this right here is my heart. We founded this church in 2006 in January, and it has been just an incredible blessing to us to just meet all of you. I can honestly say there has been no drama here. Y'all don't have problems. Y'all are just like the easiest people to pastor on earth. But I've fallen in love with y'all in the process. I've been at your hospital visits. I've been at your surgery appointments. We buried some people. That was very painful. But we're family. We're family, and we always will be family, and distance will not separate us. But I became a volunteer. We became health coaches, and we've been transforming loads of lives and helping people. And I won't get into all that, but just when we started doing that, God just tremendously exploded our business like nothing we ever expected before. And then because my dream has always been to do ministry for free. I don't want no church paying me to do what I want to do anyway. So when we got blessed financially, I said, we need to become volunteers. And so that's what we did. We served here, and we took no money from the church. And that was a tremendous blessing to us and an honor and a dream of mine that I've always had. But when I became a volunteer, something happened inside of me And I've had opportunities throughout the years to leave and do different things. I never had a peace about it. Never did. Until when I became a volunteer, every single week, the peace lifted that I had to stay here. Because now we feel like in our spirit, and this is really wild, it's a wild thing for me, but sometimes you have to be obedient. Actually, not sometimes, all the time. Don't make me preach. But not sometimes, but all the time. And that's the thing. I feel it's lifted. I know it's time. And the weirdest thing about all of it, I don't have a clue what's next. And I think that's kind of fun, though. A little nerve-wracking, but it's kind of fun, you know? So what we do know is that what's next for us, you know, I don't want to compare myself to Abraham here. I'm definitely not Abraham, please. But in the Bible, Abraham could not walk into his destiny and purpose until he did what? Until he left his family. And I feel like, in my spirit, we cannot turn the page to the next chapter in our book that God is writing until we leave. And again, when we get there, I feel like God's going to reveal everything. And you're saying, well, John Michael, are you going to be in ministry? Because I really thought you were great. Of course, I love the ministry. I'm not backsliding here, folks. I'm not just going to go in health coach world. Yes, I'm passionate about transforming lives. I love it. We have a blast doing it. But this has been an incredible ministry door that is open. We've ministered to so many lives together. We've loved every second of it, but more is to come. And I don't know what God's got for us in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but I do know that something is big and very exciting that's going to happen. And I just want to tell all of you before I hand it to my wife is that we so appreciate you guys being so supportive of us. I really didn't know what to expect. I know y'all are great people and you're pretty nice. But I felt like there was going to be some darts and arrows shooting our way, and y'all haven't done that, and I really do appreciate that. And we hated we couldn't be here last week to make the announcement. But, baby, just share your heart today and whatever you want to share with the CHP family.
Okay. Yes, like he said, you know, this has been the only church we've ever known. This in Brownsville, because pastor's been the only pastor I've ever had, and started going to Brownsville when I was about 5, probably. So neither of us have ever been anywhere to church except for his dad and mom being our pastors. So it's a crazy time for us. A little foggy, a little scary, but when seasons change, you must change with them. And I think the most important thing that I've learned from seasons changing is not to look at the specifics, but to look at God. And I was reading, and, you know, I've always been intrigued by Moses and his 40-year gaps. When he was 40, he left his home in Egypt. He went out into the wilderness. Doesn't say a lot about his life out there. But then the next paragraph, 40 years later, God brought him to a new place in his life. And I know for him, the specifics may have seemed a little crazy, and they may have seemed a little wrong, or they may have seemed a little not in his plan. But when God came to him, and when God shifted the seasons in his life, he moved, and he went. And the places that he went were not only for him, but they were for others. And, you know, I think in the shifting of our lives, sometimes we get so used to the normal. And when God pulls those feathers out of our nest and he says, you've got to go, we get our mind fixed on us. And we think, how does this affect me? But how does it affect others if we don't go? And so John Michael and I are walking into the unknown. And, you know, it's painful because it's a tearing for us of not just our church, but our families. But if we don't go, we know we're going to miss God in this. And so we do appreciate your support. We appreciate your love. We appreciate your understanding. And we'll be back to visit. Of course, you won't completely get rid of us.
Yeah. Well, we want y'all to know that, too. You know, as you've seen, a lot of changes has happened. My brother-in-law, Matt, who's done a fantastic job with the youth group, and we honor Matt and Abby for everything that they have done. But you're feeling a lot of change in the atmosphere. And a lot of times, you know, sometimes people don't handle change very well, but I'm telling you, I know in my spirit, just here this morning, I felt the presence of God all morning. I feel it right now. God's here, okay? God's a really big God, and yes, he uses people, but I just want to tell you, I believe the gears are changing, but you know what? Sometimes when you shift down, that's a good thing, because when you shift down, that means there's more power there when you move down a level. Because I believe that God's about to explode CHP. Y'all are going to see things that you've never seen before, and incredible things are about to take place. And listen, we just want to know, one of the last things we say is, I want to let my mom and dad know how much I appreciate y'all. I would not even be on this platform if it wasn't for the life you lived in private, Mom, Dad. And you guys are the epitome of what Christians are. Now listen, for those of y'all that see these people up here, you think, wow, he's a great speaker, he's great. These are just great people outside these walls. And that's why I've served them my whole life and felt called to do it. And I'm still going to serve them. I love my parents and I honor them. And this is a hard time for them. So y'all be supportive. And listen, y'all don't be live streaming. Y'all going to have to get your tail in here and be supportive every single week, because you know how he is. He likes to see your mug in these chairs. We know that you're giving online and you're watching online, and that's great. If you're out of state, we know you can't be here, but support Mom and Dad. Listen, y'all got some exciting things. He just mentioned a building program y'all are about to have here. God's going to do incredible things here at CHP, and I know God's going to use this young man right over here, Burke Zach, which I'm excited about you, Burke. We love you, man. I know we haven't connected quite as much, but I know Burke. I have confidence in him. I've heard him preach before, and this boy's fire. This boy's fire. So we're excited. We love y'all, and thank you so much for all of your love and support to me and my wife and my boys here at CHP. We love you, and let's turn the next page in the chapter for CHP and for us. God bless.